Well, I'll give you just a little background of what we have in um, contract training. It's every Monday. It's on Zoom. It's from 12 to 1, as here we are. And it's generally both Steph Conard and me. We are the two compliance brokers at Keller Williams. And we're here to help you sort through issues, help you with wording, verbiage in your contracts, keep you in compliance. If you're ever in doubt, it's a good time to definitely call either one of us or check in with these contract trainings on Monday that we usually name a specific topic that we're talking about, but through this month of December, what our topic is you can ask us anything. So we're here for your support on contracts, basically on contract issues. You could practice contracts with either one of us if you want, and we're always here to help you. So, but every Monday contract training through the month of December, it's going to be just open Q&A questions you have. So Katie or David or welcome Mabats. If you have questions, let me have it. You could turn off your microphones, turn on your microphones so that you can have an open discussion if you want. Any questions about the offer to purchase, about a condo offer to purchase? Any questions about the new showing agreement? We do a lot of contract training on buyer agency. So if you have questions about buyer agency, now that we have the new NAR settlement rules upon us. So any questions, any topic. Let me see if I can unmute you. If you don't have any questions, I'm gonna talk about something that is still kind of confusing with the new NAR settlement. And that's that showing agreement that you must have in place, signed by the buyer. That on the terms of the fact that if you don't have buyer agency with this buyer, and that's a big if you don't have buyer agency with this buyer, you may have, you have to have him sign the showing agreement. And it's on our zip form. It's a good idea, probably just to print out a bunch of them, keep them in your car or whatever. So anytime you're asked to show a house, and if you don't have buyer agency agreement with that buyer, you have them sign that they agree that they are in pre-agency. You are not a customer, you're not a client, we're in pre-agency, and all I'm doing is showing you this house. But according to the new NAR rules, this is a required document that we have to have in place. So most of the agents that I talk to now just go into their buyer agency presentation and get buyer agency with this buyer. But if you're not very well practiced in that and you just want to get to know this person before you talk about buyer agency in depth with them, then you just have them sign this showing agreement. And all it does is explain the fact that we're in pre-agency. You're not a customer, you are not a client. I am just performing my real estate services in um, showing you this property. But we're not going to negotiate. We're not going to um, talk about anything according to price or value or things like that. If you are interested and want to write an offer on this property, then we have to decide, are you going to be a customer of mine or are you going to be a client of mine? And that means signing buyer agency. So I think that's been the most confusing thing that most people are wrestling with. The idea is, what's the difference between pre-agency, agency, and customer? And you need to get those concepts in mind. That's basically the outline. And a lot of people, especially if you're a new licensee, are learning how to present buyer agency as a choice to a potential buyer. Um, you want to be able to explain it carefully. You want to be able to make sure that they understand the concepts of buyer agency, that they will cover your commission if the seller or the seller's firm does not cover your commission. So that's the clear and cooperating rule of this new NAR settlement. The courts thought that the NAR and its agents weren't being clear enough. The fact that they may owe their agent money. So that's basically why we have to have this pre-agency showing agreement, or have them decide whether they want to be a customer, or have them decide, do they want to be a client of yours? So it's pre-agency, customer, client. But one of those things has to be signed and discovered before you show any property to them. So it's absolutely clear and cooperating. Any questions about this? Have you had any practice in doing the showing agreement? Have you had anybody willingly become a buyer's client for you? Do they understand the difference of being a customer or a client or a client or a client? So make sure that you are well versed in it yourself and that you can make that presentation clear and transparent to your potential buyers. So it's very important, and if you would like further training on this, I know that this is what they train in all of our aspects of accelerated and all the different support systems that we have. So again, Steph and I are always available if you have a particular question on a contract to call either one of us. I basically cover North Shore and North Shore, but I will take questions from any agent of ours in any office. And Steph is the same. She works out of Lake Country, but she will also take questions from any agent from any of our offices. So we're the two compliance brokers for KW. There is a compliance broker for the Southwest. I'm not sure if that's Andy Cool. There is also Sarah Papp, is also a compliance broker. So we have four, but right now here, Steph and I are the only two that do contract training on Mondays. Any other questions? In the, probably in the month of January, we'll revert back to our basic topics in contract training, which means which means going back to the offer to purchase for one Monday, going back to buyer agency for a Monday, and we'll start over with the basics again. So David asked, how many homes should be the max you show someone under a pre-agency before requiring a buyer agency agreement? There is no limit to it as long as you both realize that you're not giving really any real estate advice or comment on value or help on negotiations. And you can show as many homes as you want up to the point that they write an offer. And when they're ready to write an offer, that's when you make the disclosure, are they going to be a customer or are they going to be a client? Yes, it's a good question, Katie. If you're doing a showing for another agent at KW, yes, on behalf of that other agent, you would still need a showing agreement. Either that agent can sign a showing agreement or you can. It doesn't, it's really Keller Williams has a showing agreement with that buyer. Anything else on this topic or any other topic that we're talking about? I think the key learning curve in this new NAR settlement is explaining buyer agency to a potential buyer, whether they're right now sitting with you in pre-agency, like with the showing agreement. You're not allowed to give them any advice or negotiate with them or write an offer. And making sure that you can explain that to them. When you're ready to write an offer, that's when the buyer has to decide, am I going to be a customer or am I going to be a client of yours? And a customer means that you have certain duties, and you all saw those in all of your real estate training. You have duties to everyone, and then you have specific duties to a client. So you can read the general duties to everyone, to this potential customer. You can do everything, but you cannot negotiate, really. You can just put down on the offer to purchase what they want, what price they want, what terms they want, and you are helping them facilitate writing an offer on this property. If they want to be a client of yours, then that is when you bring out the buyer agency agreement. You go through it carefully. You explain to them what the extra duties that you have to them in being a client and not a customer. So that's the key. Because you're going to be a client of mine, here are the extra duties that I can perform for you. And the number one key important one is negotiate. I can negotiate for you with the listing agent or with the seller on your behalf. So I can advise you to value, I can advise you to terms, I can advise you in many of the aspects of the terms of the contract offer to purchase. I cannot tell you what you should write. I am only advising you, but what you want is key and number one to what goes in the offer. So if you don't agree with some of the things that I would suggest, I still have a duty to obey and write down what you want. So all of that is explained, I believe, pretty carefully in the buyer agency agreement. But if you want extra support on that, it is covered in Accelerator. It is covered in a lot of the trainings. And specifically one-on-one, you can call me and I can answer some of your questions. Good morning. Oh, good afternoon, excuse me.
Hi.
Nicole, we're having an open, ask us anything.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why I joined.
Good. So, so please hop in if I can help.
Yeah, I was wondering about an excluded listing and um yeah, does and just kind of couple things. One, does that still go in MLS? And are there different parameters for how it goes in MLS? And then I have some questions about communicating about it, but we could start with that.
Okay. Yeah, an excluded listing means, in effect, it's excluded from marketing in MLS. So MLS says, if you're not going to market in MLS, which we believe is, then you're not going to market it anywhere. It's excluded from any marketing. And if you're
Mhm.
caught marketing it in any way or anywhere, beyond just one-on-one conversation, then they will force you to make it active to MLS within 24 hours.
Okay.
So it just means excluded from marketing. So if you have it in excluded, and generally the most homeowners want excluded, um, if they don't want it really publicly known, they want it kind of privately on the market.
Mhm.
It's up to you as the listing agent to make those phone calls, to make those contacts with agents that may be interested. But we cannot put it in writing anywhere in social media, anywhere in any kind of flyer, uh, any kind of marketing, because they will say can't market that because you're not marketing it in MLS. So
Okay.
generally celebrities don't want it included in MLS. It should be for privacy. It shouldn't be, and some agents have been reprimanded for it as keeping it sort of a pocket listing for themselves. If that's ever the intention, MLS will fine you. But it's basically, and that has a form that the seller signs, that form that they want it excluded. And it does ask that question directly. Is this your decision, to, to
Okay.
remain non-marketed?
Do you
So,
still put like the listing agreement and all those forms in MLS, even though it's not being published to MLS?
yes, yeah,
Okay. So
yeah, they
you go through the same process,
have.
putting the bed numbers and the square foot and all those details.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that shows it's listed. MLS has to show and send in the listing agreement as well, but
Okay.
also attach the excluded form with it. But everything else should go in because it's in the MLS system. It's just not broadcast to anyone. It's not marketed
Okay.
to anyone.
And what's the deadline to do that?
Well, you have to do it at the onset of the listing.
Is there like 48 hours after it's like, after the listing date, or is it like that same day?
It should go in simultaneously with the offer
What do you mean with the offer?
into MLS. You
Hmm.
send in the listing agreement and the excluded form with the offer, or with the listing, excuse me.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
And then one more question. Does this excluded, like you can't advertise it? I don't know. So that mean you can't put it like on our KW Facebook? Like I have an excluded listing in West Allis that's 3 bedrooms. You can't do that either?
You list it with Willis, and we have a special excluded single party list of things, and he will put it on that list.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I
don't,
knew about that. I just didn't know if you could
no,
like
don't do it
give.
on your own. Just get it on that list
Okay.
with Willis. Because that list, they review it to make sure that we're not infracting any MLS rules there.
Okay. And then lastly, what happens if you don't put it up at the same time? Like the listing says December 1st and you put it up on December 4th. Like you enter in the information and put the contract up in
Mhm.
MLS late.
MLS will deal with that.
Okay,
I believe you may have to do a new listing. To expire that listing you turned in and do a new listing.
okay, okay. All right, I
They're,
think
they're generally good about warnings. You know,
mhm.
if you make a mistake on something, they'll send you a warning and make sure that this is corrected in so many days, and then they won't fine you. But I know that an excluded listing has to be, a delayed listing also has to be put in at the onset of the listing entry.
Okay. I think that's it.
Good, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mhm. Anybody else have something? Nothing in the chat, nothing new. Nicole, earlier I just went over some of the reminders about the showing agreement and the choices between pre-agency, customer, and client. So it seems to still be one of the more common questions that Steph and I get. Um, People are thinking they really don't need to do that. And yes, if it's audited and not done, I don't know, that's real estate jail.
I do have another question.
Good.
Um, okay, so I'm wondering about, it's pretty common in the additional provisions of an offer for you to put like, if a contingency expires on a holiday or a weekend, then it goes over to the next business day. I'm wondering about, um, yeah, how that couples with, what's it called? Like something about the date. Time is of the essence.
Okay.
How that couples together. Um, Specifically with earnest money, how I'm
Mhm.
currently viewing it is that earnest money isn't a contingency. So if you put 4 days, it's 4 days no matter when it falls. And then also with like the proof of funds, if you're saying, if you're going to be paying cash and you're not, um, yeah, having the contingency of financing and you're saying, I'm going to send the proof of funds within 4 days. If that 4 days falls on a holiday or a weekend, does it extend the deadline? Or is that only like things that say actual contingency?
It's things like actual contingency, because the three parts of a contingency are what it is, what happens if it's not met, and date and time. Um, Basically, when it says time is of the essence, it means that dates in the offer to purchase are solid. And the only reason some of those dates are either considered business days or actual days, you just make sure that you're reading that carefully so that you're not counting weekends or holidays, say on the disclosure of the condominium documents, which is required in 5 business days and not 5 days. But you're right. If it's a contingency, that's part of it, like the loan commitment date, things like that. That's part of the contingency, a very important part of the contingency.
But an earnest money deadline wouldn't apply to that additional provision of a contingency is going to be extended to the next business day because it's not actually a contingency, right?
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's generally things that are controlled by who's open on a weekend or a holiday. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Things like it doesn't matter about mail because mail is on postmark and not on receipt. But things that, like a title company wouldn't be open in the weekend. So um, you just go to the next business day in a closing date if it happens on a Sunday or something. But it's basically to make sure that it's available. Yeah.
Okay. I have one more, probably the last one.
No, these are good questions. Thank you.
Okay. So when you have a cash buyer, I've gone through this before, but it's been a while, so I don't really remember. Do they open title or how are they, yeah, how do they deal with, is there a title that they have to do or?
Yes, because part of the requirements of selling the house, it's selling the house free and clear of all liens and encumbrances. So that's basically what the responsibility of title is to make sure it's being transferred with clear title. So yes, that's very
So
important.
the cash buyer needs to do basically their own title search.
They could, but the title company will do it. They will do a title search on any property, whether it's cash or a lender.
So if I'm representing the buyer, I don't need to contact title, like the seller's title covers it.
Yes. I
Okay,
mean, you can choose a different title if you want.
okay,
But in default, the seller's title company does all of them. And you
okay.
gotta make sure that option to choose a different one, you do it early because you don't want the seller's title company doing all that work and then saying, we don't want to use you.
Okay. So if you do have a cash buyer after the accepted offer, other than contingencies, like are you just waiting to close? Or what other tasks do you have?
Well, it'll still include the appraisal from the lender.
Mhm.
So that will, most lenders will want an appraisal done. And the title company also searches for any easements or can't think of the word.
Okay,
Yeah. But they will do that search for making sure that that's all clear. But it is, clean of all liens and encumbrances. So that's what they'll look, whether it's cash or not.
okay. And then I didn't have this question, but figured I just came up, so I'd ask if there is a lien, I don't know how it works in Wisconsin. Are they are yeah, are they able to pay it off with the proceeds? Like if it comes up with a $10,000 tax lien against the seller, can the seller pay it off with proceeds or do they have to pay it before closing?
That's a very good question, and I'm trying to remember the answer. Um, I think they can pay it off with proceeds. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, back a while ago, we had to have a real lien. It couldn't be a copy, it couldn't be an email or
Mm,
fax or anything. It had to be an actual lien signed wet by the contractor or whoever. And trying to get those signed and over to the closing in time was always a hassle. But I believe we need that lien prior to closing, but not necessarily that it's paid off. I
okay.
mean, the lien release is saying it's been paid. They're okay.
Mhm, mhm.
But back then it had to be a real one. We kept
Okay.
pad of lien waivers in our glove compartment to
I have
drag.
another question that's totally unrelated. Um, Man, this is nice. I'm getting all my questions
Good. That's what this
answered
is
all at
for.
once. Um, yeah, so what's the deal with I know about do not call, but what about email? Like if you, for example, I download like a list of contacts from, some source like Land Voice or whatever. And yeah, it gives me the emails. What's the legality there? Are you allowed to email people without them having given consent, or how does that work?
Well, it's a little bit hazier than do not call, but it is part of that do not call um, ruling that it includes emails.
Okay.
So somebody could take offense at receiving an email like that and try to make a complaint
Hmm.
uh, on it. But you probably, if you're sending emails like that, you probably have some kind of a disclaimer on it. I'm not sure if that works, but it's all, I think, in the hands of somebody who wants to complain.
Mm-hmm.
So unsolicited emails could be objected to. Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of strange then that companies would give out those emails.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because on that database it tells you this is a do not call, this is acceptable,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would follow that guidance because they probably know more than I do about it. But the do not call is serious. It's a serious fine if you're found guilty of violating somebody's right. And I mean, we used to call it a business breaker fine. I mean, it can be
Mm.
really hefty.
Yeah.
So I think keeping on top of that and understanding that is good for you, for each agent. When I was the manager of in the Coldwell Banker office, when we were in the Charlotte office, and one of the agents was notified that she had violated the do not call list. And it was scary. I mean, because she wasn't aware that she had done that. And it was when this law was new. And I mean, she was facing tens of thousands of dollars of fines if convicted. So it was she was innocent, turned out, uh, because what she had done is contact a for sale by owner. And he found that as harassment, telemarketing, and filed a complaint against her. But when she revealed the fact that she was a buyer's agent for that buyer that she was inquiring about, they found her innocent of it because she had the right to negotiate for that agent with a for sale by owner. But it was scary. Sorry. Any other questions? Nicole, you've been great because the questions benefit everybody on the call. So if you're a newer agent and you say, what do I ask? I don't know what, I could ask 1,000 questions right now, but once you are in the business and actually dealing with individual transactions, lots of questions come up. And that's what Steph and I are here for, is to catch you in those moments when things are um, questionable, and what you can say and what you can respond. But you have to remember that neither Steph nor I nor any of you, maybe some exceptions, are lawyers. So we can't give legal advice. The only advice we can give is real estate advice, and that's based on our contracts, our WRA contracts. So all the Wisconsin bar has given us permission to sort of practice law if we use the contracts. And our knowledge of these contracts gives us the right to advise our clients on what the wording is in there, but that's as far as we can go. We can't sign anything, create anything out of the WRA contracts. And we have to be tied to those, but we can give real estate advice based on these contracts. So Steph and I are not lawyers either, so don't call us for legal advice. We'll refer you to a lawyer. Any other questions? No? Well, Nicole, thank you very much for your input, and the rest of you for attending. I appreciate it very much. So I'll sign off, and next Monday, it's more Ask Us Anything. Bye-bye.